Welcome back to another episode of the Purpose Babe Show. I'm your host, Corie Clark. Thank you so much for tuning in again. This week is a special episode. I am really excited about it because I think it's really important as a brand, as a business owner, whatever it is that you do. I think it's so important that we actually learn how to step into our authority. Because if we're always just kind of tiptoeing and we're unsure of ourselves or what we have to offer, it's going to be really hard for other people to trust you. And so as we learn how to step into our authority, it helps build that trust. So tune in, enjoy the show, make sure that you let me know what you get out of it, what you love about it. Tag me on Instagram and let me know what you think. All right. Hi, Colin. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I'm so excited to chat with you and share your expertise and your brilliance with my audience.
Yeah. Hey, I'm excited to be here, Corie.
So excited. So, me and Colin go way back to like his first days in the United States.
It's true. Hey, we met in the first couple of weeks of us landing in the US.
We did. And so Colin has been my mentor, my coach, my mastermind leader for the last couple of years. And I'm just really excited to share with you guys today because he's so smooth at his speaking and he really is. I mean, you're just amazing. So why don't you let us know a little bit about kind of how you got to what you're actually doing today?
Yeah. Well, I remember when I first started my coaching business, I started out as a life coach. And I remember my grandmother saying to me, "What on earth can you coach? You know, you're like 28 years old and have nothing to offer." And so so I was, just dealing with the emotional hit of my family criticizing my life decision. But eventually what had happened was I was really just struggling to get some one-on-one clients at the time. And I remember I was in this like 2-bedroom apartment with my wife, who you know really well, Sarah. And, we had this like burnt car out the front. There was like, people getting broken into in the building next to us. It was just we were in like a tough spot. And what happened was I tried all these different strategies and I got invited to speak at an event. And it was the first time I ever kind of was speaking on the topic of success or life coaching, which my grandma probably wouldn't recommend me to do at the time. But anyway, I took up the opportunity and I went and I spoke. There was like 150 people there. And from that speaking engagement, that live speaking engagement, it was like 90% of them gave me their personal details to follow up. And I made what I didn't realize, I made an irresistible offer at the end. And from there, I went from having like one client who would pay me, every other month or so, or do one session, to having like 10 or 12 coaching clients and then landing my first corporate gig with Hewlett Packard. And I remember going through that experience and realizing that just the power of speaking, the power of now that was a live stage. And I know we're recording this during quarantine, which we probably should have recorded this in our room together, like catching up live. We're like 10 minutes down the road. But like that was when I first realized the power of speaking on a stage, and that can be transitioned to a virtual event as well. If you're running a summit, that quite literally in just one speaking engagement, it can transform your business. And so that was the first, I guess, taste for me of going, this is the possibility of this vehicle of speaking.
Yeah. That's amazing. Because so were you trying to get like your life coaching clients before you started speaking? You were just trying to get them. How were you getting them before?
Uh, so I had this one strategy, which I don't recommend. So I had, an A4, or we call it letter in the US sized piece of paper, and I cut slits at the bottom, put my cell number, and then it was basically I typed a big sign out, said like, "Are you struggling with your life? Call Colin Boyd, life coach." And I I taped that around the telegraph poles on all the corners. And I remember coming out and seeing a few of them gone, like ripped off. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting leads. This is going to like explode my business. And then I walked to the next one and there was like a flurry of paper all around. And I realized that people were just ripping them off and just throwing them on the ground. And so that was one strategy I tried. I remember I used to like copy and paste people's emails addresses off like Facebook and try to like email them, pretty much, let's call it, that's like illegal at the time. I had no idea what I was doing. And really like, it was, like direct messaging on Facebook was just kind of kicking off Facebook and probably MySpace, those sort of things. And so that, and I'd done a bit of networking. Like I'd got a client or few from networking, but when I spoke on a stage, and then now obviously that can be a virtual stage, like that was when I just blew my mind, the possibilities of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And because you get your message in front of so many people instead of just a one-on-one, sales call or something like that. So what do you feel like you mentioned the irresistible offer? Do you feel like that's something where people are maybe missing the point when they are trying to sell, on whether it's on a webinar or, a Facebook Live? Or is that a key ingredient, or is there like multiple things that you've got to have in place?
Yeah, well, there's usually like 3 core things you need in place for a speech or a webinar to go well.
Okay.
The first one is your message. So your message is like what you actually deliver. And that's definitely one of my specializations, is like working out the concepts, the ideas that you need to speak on and how to speak on them in a way that it creates desire for the offer that you have. And so it's basically the content of your presentation, you could say. That's the first part. The second part is your offer. So it does have to be irresistible. And I've made many unirresistible offers before and had many times had crickets. And I've learned over the years of the difference between an irresistible offer and a resistible offer. And then the third element is your audience. And so you really have to have the right audience in front of you who have access to money or have access to the resources that you're asking them for. And then secondly, that you deeply understand your audience, so that when you speak, they say in their minds and their hearts, this person really gets me, and this person can really help me to get the results that I want to get. So those 3 combined, it's the content or the message, the offer itself, and the audience. You get them combined on a webinar and you can crush it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, in this time when all we have is, Zoom calls and virtual conferences and that kind of stuff, how do you think people can leverage this time to actually have like some of the best launches they've ever had?
Yeah. Well, I definitely, I know for us, we've had some of our best launches we've had during quarantine. I know a lot of my friends and some of our clients have had some of the best launches they've had during quarantine. So I think that there is such an opportunity, but you obviously have to be aware of like, what is the market saying and what is the market needing? And so I know even for us in our business, I was previously very focused on live stages and speaking and keynoting on live stages. Now, virtual stages was always a core element of it. But for me, I've decided to transition more towards virtual stages. Now, I mean, the crossover is pretty simple in terms of a live stage or a virtual stage. But I think that right now there is an amazing opportunity still. And to be honest, like, I mean, running a webinar, running a virtual summit, doing a Facebook Live series, they're all virtual stages. The leverage you can get from that is incredible. And I just think right now, necessity creates innovation. And as much as we would love to be able to think of ourselves as continual innovation and growth machines, we're, as humans, we're not. And so a lot of the time it's through pain and necessity that forces us to actually innovate. And so I know for us, it's forced us to innovate. I know a lot of my friends and colleagues have forced us to innovate. So I think there's still amazing opportunity right now, and more than ever, virtual stages. And I know Zoom's like value has like 20 times because of the amount of people on there. But there's a big difference between running a webinar and actually getting clients from a webinar. And that's my obsession.
Yeah. Now, okay, what would be your advice? Because obviously I was supposed to have a live event, on a stage with speakers. How do you, what would be, this is has nothing to, this wasn't even a planned question, but what's your advice to someone like that who has traditionally just been speaking on stages, which I wasn't. It was this was going to be my first real big live event.
Yeah.
And so, but let's say there's there's plenty of entrepreneurs that is specifically how they ran their business. That's how they made, a bulk of their income. And maybe they are feeling stuck. Like you said, they have to be innovative, but let's just say you were talking with a entrepreneur who specifically was only bringing in that money and they felt stuck, they didn't know what to do. Would you suggest just running the exact same event on Zoom, or what kind of change, what kind of little changes would there be?
Yeah, well, I think there's two things you need to think of. One thing is the platform you deliver it on. So obviously if you decide to transition to a virtual stage, then that's the platform. But the second thing is asking, does the message still resonate? Because if you're teaching something that requires in-person things as a result, then that message needs to change slightly. So for example, maybe you might be a gym owner and you are or maybe you're a gym expert who teaches people how to get personal training clients or how to get fill their gym up. You're going to have to change your message in this climate. And so you have to work out from the sense of, do I need to do a small pivot in my message and go, hey, it's still the same clientele, but it's a slightly different way of doing business? Or for some people, they have to completely pivot their whole business and they have to focus on, so for example, if maybe you're working with photographers right now, you might have to actually work with a different audience, potentially, not definitely, but potentially. And I know we've got a mutual friend who does a lot of stuff with hairdressers, and so she's decided not to completely pivot out of her audience because she's got such a big audience, but she definitely had to change her messaging and how they make money and so forth. And so I think that's definitely something to consider. I know a lot of speakers who, I know speakers who were doing really well on live stages and had, hundreds of thousands of dollars booked in stages and literally had the whole thing pulled. I was just chatting with someone on my podcast the other day, and he said he remembers the month after quarantine hitting, the organizations asking for $20,000 deposits back from him. And he was pushing out $120,000, $150,000 a month in deposits back. And so, and he lost the income as well. So it definitely, it's going to require a lot from you. I know one of my other friends, his name's Vin Jiang, and he's a classic keynote speaker. And he's transitioned very much to virtual stages. He basically he runs a live workshop and he's taken it to a multi-day workshop on virtual stages. And so actually I was chatting with my Facebook ads manager the other day, and Tony Robbins just ran an Unleash the Power Within. It was 22,000 people, $500 a ticket. That's a couple of tens of millions of dollars in ticket revenue. And I wonder what he did on the back end of that as well, because he would have sold into some other coaching program or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
So I just think the opportunity is still so there. So if you're naturally in a live event, just transition to an online event. And the feedback I'm getting from most people is that, if you know how to run a virtual event fairly well, then the feedback is most people say they actually really enjoyed it. And some of them even enjoyed it more.
Yeah. All the people that would rather stay home and not be around human beings are loving this.
Totally, which is not us, but
no,
for some people.
I'm like dying. I'm like,
Same.
and I must say, because, we did have our virtual mastermind retreat and it was great, but it definitely wasn't the same, but we still got like the lessons we needed, the impact we needed. It was still there. So, I might have to come over to your house next week for one of the sessions.
Definitely. I mean, once, and that's it. You have to kind of work with what you have.
Yeah.
And what I like about it as well is sometimes I look at people who just only did live stuff, because I think, live stuff will eventually come back. I still think live stuff's my favorite. Mm-hmm. It's my favorite to do a live workshop or a live keynote. But I don't want my whole business based on that. And I never did. Mm-hmm. And I think that you do need to find that balance of live stages and virtual stages. And so I know for me, if my whole business is based on virtual stages, I wouldn't enjoy it as much as if, still a percentage of it is based in live.
Yeah.
And so because I'm naturally extroverted, etc. So I think you kind of can look at your personality as well and go like, what sort of personality do I have and what do I want to plan? But at the moment, it's all live. It's all virtual.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. This is like the perfect opportunity for introverts to actually leverage this part of their business when they might have normally been too scared to do some sort of live event. Okay.
And it's cheap. I was going to say,
yeah,
a virtual events,
yes.
It's pennies. Yeah. A couple $100 and you're set.
Yeah, I know.
Event,
Zoom and
$10,000 minimum.
I know. Well, and I did see some, I didn't attend Tony Robbins, but I saw some people posting stories of it. Well, his definitely cost a fortune to put on.
Yeah,
did you see it?
No, I didn't have a close look.
He was like in a studio, like on a stage, and there was like screens all around him with people on the Zoom so that he could still have an audience. It was intense. I was like, leave it to Tony Robbins
Classic
to
Tony.
make you, make you feel like you actually are at a live event.
Totally.
Yeah. So, no, all you need is computer, Zoom, microphone. You're good.
You're good. No, 100%.
So what do you think is a big mistake that people make when they are, maybe they are using live video and Zoom and they're not even really selling? Like what's a big mistake where people are missing out on an opportunity to actually make a substantial amount of money?
Yeah. Well, I think one shift you first need to make is that if you are in a for-profit business, like in other words, clients pay you money so that exchange for working with them, then you really have to see selling as part of your service to them. Mm. And if you don't make that shift, first of all, you're going to struggle to actually sell, and you're going to really struggle to make an offer. But I think that first shift of going, selling is not something I should feel ashamed of. It's not something I should feel icky around. It's actually the doorway that through which I work with other people on a deeper level. And, it just makes total sense because you can only see so much transformation with someone without them paying. Mm-hmm. And the payment is actually part of their transformation and their commitment to themselves. And so I feel like this mental shift of going, when I'm running a webinar, the goal is yes, to help people. And the greatest way to help them is for them to commit to themselves on a new level. And that is potentially through doing your program if you're the right fit for them.
Yeah, I love that because I do see a lot of, inside of my community and my audience, a lot of I mostly work with women anyways, so I don't know what it's like for men, but I see so many women that are afraid to charge and they end up giving away so much for free. And, and I've seen that, like I'm living proof. I've bought courses and all that kind of stuff. But like when you actually invest more and you do something like join a mastermind or buy like an expensive course that has a lot of value, you put more skin in the game and you're more likely to show up and actually put in that effort.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about it, not selling to your audience is ripping them off. So think about it like for those of you, if you really realize, if you're like, I am really undervaluing what I bring. And on top of that, I'm giving away everything. Like I'm not creating a space where what you're actually not doing is you're not creating a space where your audience can commit to themselves on a greater level. And
Mm.
so not making an offer is actually ripping off your audience. It's kind of
I
like, I know
like
it's,
that.
yeah,
No,
that,
it's good. You got to
yeah.
put that on like a little quote card on Instagram.
When I came up with that, then in my mind, I was like, that actually is pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I was like literally thinking like, oh, I'm going to use that on Instagram when I like release this episode.
So good.
Oh, I love it. But it's so true. And I think that's what like the mindset shift that people have to make is they feel really bad. And especially right now. So like, what's your advice right now during this time? For instance, I do have an audience that is more like they're just starting out in their business. And right now with the quarantine and people losing their jobs, a lot of people actually do not have the money to put into a high level program. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, there's always going to be people who can't afford it, and there's
Mm,
always going to be people who can afford it. Now, does this situation skew that slightly? It could. It definitely could, like, and it probably has, like, without a
mm-hmm.
doubt, skewed that. But once again, the truth is there's always going to be people who can't afford it. Like, if you made
Yeah.
your program $29 for the whole year, you would still have people going, that's too expensive,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you price your program at. You're always going to have people who can't afford it and can afford it. And so I think you just have to be careful with taking on kind of like other people's limitations,
Mm,
because that is kind of basically saying that and you have to take this, I do take this with a grain of salt, but I just want to caution it, because I know for a lot of people, I know even for us, when stuff, shifted dramatically, we had to make a lot of changes in our life and what we were doing. We had to make a lot of shifts. And it was that commitment that caused us to grow in our business. And
mm-hmm.
so I think part of it is like encouraging all your listeners to go, yes, you can take a moment to go, this sucks, like this is really tough. But at some
Mm-hmm.
point you have to go, how do we need to innovate here? Like,
Yeah.
do I need to change my skill set? Do I need to change how I'm delivering what I'm doing? Do I need to shift my business? Do I need to totally change what I'm doing? And so there is a level of like, okay, this is a big hit and that sucks. But at some point, you have to take responsibility and go, you know what does this next level look like in this current season?
Mm.
And that's my biggest encouragement. And I said that out of compassion, because we've been through many times where we've had really big hits financially and changes and shifts, and we've just had to keep stepping up to the plate. And that's
Yeah.
what makes life kind of worth living, is that when you show up on a bigger level.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that. How you said there's always going to be people who can afford it and there's always going to be people who can't. That's really like, that was really good for me to hear because, it's so true. I mean, like you said, you've had some of your best launches during this quarantine, during this season.
100%. And I know from other people who have even, because I wouldn't say that I'm in an audience where it's dramatically hit, because I
Mm-hmm.
serve, similar to you, I serve business owners and experts and thought leaders. But I would say that I've seen other people who are in audiences where it actually is having a big hit and they've still had their biggest launches. And
Yeah.
so I think you can always find evidence for people struggling, and you can always find evidence for people thriving. And
Mm-hmm.
so you just have to be cautious, especially during these current times, of just what you're putting your focus and your energy on, because you can emotionally be drained and limited very quickly when
Mm-hmm.
external circumstances start putting pressure on you. And so one of my commitments is to always, I'm really cautious around even what news I look at. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so cautious around what I let in my mind, because I just know how much I'm influenced by that. And,
Mm-hmm.
like, I
Yeah.
just know how sensitive I am. And because I know that, I'm just very cautious around what I let into my thinking.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We had, everything like we planned for this year was like, focused on our live event. And so, I mean,
Yeah.
like we literally planned every launch, everything we were going to do with the podcast, everything we were going to do with everything was completely leading up to the event. That was the focus. And so then when we realized, okay, we're not gonna be able to do this in October, it totally threw me. It totally threw me for a loop where I was just like, oh, I don't even know what to do anymore, and I think that's fine. Like, I just needed to process it and go through it. Had I not even planned the event, I would have just kept going along with what I was normally doing. So it just, it really threw me. But like you said, it's so important to really like watch what we're like hearing and listening to and who we're surrounding ourselves with, because I'm the same way. Like, things can take me down like pretty quick if I'm not careful about it.
Yeah. Well, I think we've got very similar personalities.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're like, and, probably a lot of your listeners as well, like, you would know how sensitive you are if you're listening to what affects you. One frame I really love is that whole thing. I even think about your event, Corie, which I know you will run in the future at some point.
Yes.
But it's like, it was nothing personal about you. It's not permanent. And it's not in every area of your entire life and business. And so, like, that's a nice frame. It's called the 3 Ps. Can't remember who created it. It was someone, I think it was Goldman or something. But it's really cool, like, to think that, a lot of stuff that happens in your life isn't personal, it's not permanent, and it's not pervasive in every area. So as an entrepreneur, that is part of doing entrepreneurship. Is I like even the rule of going 50% of the stuff you do is going to flop and 50% is going to do all right. And so, like, there's always going to be stuff that doesn't work. And this one was just an external circumstance.
Yeah. Yeah. But we're pressing on and moving forward. Oh, and it feels so good to be, like, I was on a live earlier today, and it just feels so good to be, even though we cannot be in person right now, it's still so good to be connecting through these sort of virtual, circumstances, podcasting,
Totally.
virtual events, trainings and that kind of stuff. So let's circle back to that, because I know you have a training coming up.
Yes.
So I would love for you to share it with my audience, because I will say, like, this is what you're brilliant at. Like, I don't know another person who is as, like, brilliant as you are in this sphere. And I do believe that, like you said, it's something everybody needs right now. So somebody who may have never considered being a speaker on a stage can now actually tap into these, like, I don't know, they can tap into this sort of platform of using their story and creating an offer when they may have never even thought of it before.
Yeah, absolutely. So pretty much once a year, and I'm so glad we're running it right now, is we run like quite an in-depth training, and it's a free training. And the main goal of it is to show people how to confidently, and my goal is to show you effortlessly how to speak and sell on a virtual stage. And so that's the big focus of it. Sometimes we focus on live stages, but this time around we're going all in on virtual stages, because I think it's just 100% relevant. And so the training series is really about taking you through the mindset shifts, and then also the practical elements of how do you design like a signature story that sells? How do you create content that's completely irresistible as opposed to just like information based? How do you connect with your audience so that they're engaged the whole way through your webinar and your presentation? Like, these are some of the things that we're going to be focusing on. So it's really a 3-part training. We're going to go deep. I'm going to be sharing some of my kind of best kept secrets around philosophy and practicalities of actually doing that, and taking my experience of over 12 years doing this professionally and helping people to do that in their business. So you can take your message and use Zoom or use a Facebook Live and implement this content and actually get clients. And that's my goal, is to help you to get clients, not just to get confident, but to get clients. And so, so the actual training series is called How to Speak and Sell from a Virtual Stage.
Awesome. I'm so excited. I'm excited to go through it. Even though I am in your mastermind, I just always love learning from you because you do teach how to do these things effortlessly. And that's what we need because like you said, I mean, somebody could be super confident and they could get on Facebook Live and blab your ear off for an hour and nobody would even ever know you were selling something. It's just, so it's not just about the confidence. It's really about the delivery and the
Yeah.
message. And I'm really excited about it. How important do you think the story part is? Like, do you think people are using enough story in their, when they do these webinars and Facebook Lives?
Well, I think, and we're going to get into this, but like give you a taster, is that I don't teach story like pretty much anyone else, because
Mm,
most people teach signature story, that the goal is to connect with the audience and to show your credibility. So you share like a signature story to prove that, hey, I'm an expert at this. This is my journey, etc. But signature story is it important? 100%, but it's only one of 9 elements that we use, which is called infusion selling. And so your signature story, is the goal of it is actually transfer a belief. And so we have to
mm,
work out what that belief is and design your signature story so that it transfers the belief that the audience needs to hear to say yes to themselves and the commitment in what you can help them with on a greater level. And so that's just giving you a taster of it. And so that's only one of 9. There's
okay.
9 techniques that you can use in your presentations, and signature story is one.
Yeah, I do know when I've gone through your signature story training, it completely set off so many more light bulbs than I've ever had because I do think most people just teach it kind of the same way, like story brand. And, a
Yeah.
lot of people teach it the same way. And I've always gone through those things and been just kind of like, not gotten great results from it. But when I went through your signature story training, it was like, oh my gosh, I actually have like stories in me that like can like help change people.
And that is definitely a fear for a lot of people. Like they'll say, but Colin, I don't have stories, or I don't know what my signature story is. And I mean, that is the goal. That's part of the
Yeah.
process. And to be frank, you only need between 1 to 3 signature stories, but
Hmm.
within you, you've got thousands of stories that can be really powerful, but you only
Yeah.
really need 1 to 3 signature stories.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm excited for your training. You guys can sign up at corieclark.com/speak. I'll be in there. So, yeah, I'm really excited. Gosh, is there anything else that you feel like you want my listeners to know?
I just think like, that there is just such opportunity out there at the moment. And that if you've felt disheartened, if you've felt like, oh, my stuff's not selling, I really just want to encourage you to jump in the training. And even if it's just, it shows you a bigger perspective of what's possible for you, because I just think that virtual stages are just going to continue to be the future of selling. And when I say selling, I mean, once again, that's the doorway to serving your audience. And so it's
Hmm.
not pushy selling. It is speaking in a way that truly resonates with your audience. And then for the right people, they join your program. So my encouragement is to jump in the training, be re-energized, refocused. And, I'm just looking forward to helping you guys.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And I do think it is a great way to get re-energized, like you said, to just get back into, why you started doing what you're doing, to get refocused and just see what's possible and what potential lies ahead of you. So I
Yeah.
hope you guys all sign up for the training.
And it is
So,
live. It would be a live training. So I just want to be
yes.
like direct with that it's going to be happening live.
Yeah.
And so make sure to join up like right now so you don't miss
Okay.
it.
Yes. Sign up now. Do it. I'll be in there, so I'll be checking. Okay, so I always ask my guest 2 questions. So the first one is, what does living on purpose mean to you?
I think what does living on purpose mean to me? It is having my highest intention, or my intention of who I can become, clear to me every day. And one of
Mm,
my exercises that I do most days, I did it this morning, is I write out what I believe about myself. And so for me, having that clear and then doing my best each day to live to that as well as I can, that is living on purpose for me.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, last question. So if you were going to give one piece of advice to a brand new entrepreneur, what would it be?
Speak on a virtual stage, because it worked for me.
Yep. Da-ding.
But seriously.
Yeah, for reals.
Yeah,
go sign up.
For reals.
Go to the training.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Colin. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy virtual stage schedule to talk to my listeners.
Yeah. Hey, it's been a pleasure, Corie. I hope it's
Yeah.
been encouraging for you all. And say hi. Look forward to interacting with you all in the training.
Yes, definitely. Thanks, Colin. Thanks so much for tuning in, you guys. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Colin. I will add links to all of his stuff in the show notes and the link to sign up for that 3-part training. So make sure you guys get in there. I promise you, you guys will not be disappointed. Colin's trainings are always like top notch. He does not leave anything out. So go to CorieClark.com/speak. And be sure to follow our little road trip from here to Tennessee, from California to Tennessee on Instagram. I've put together, you guys, I am like the moving pro now. So I even have a blog post on like how, like my tips for moving and all this great stuff. So make sure you check that out as well. And I will be back here soon on the Purpose Babe Show. And I will be recording my next episode from Tennessee. That is pretty crazy. So, all right, you guys, have an amazing week. I love you. Thank you for listening.